Let's begin like yesterday with reciting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Is visible to you there? I think white is better. So we'll recite this collectively. Om Namo, like I mentioned yesterday. Om is a generic reference to the all-pervading divinity. The Namo is offering our respects. Bhagavate refers to the relational potency within the divine. And Vasudeva refers to the idea that the divine is not somewhere far away, that the divine resides within us and we reside within the divine. So let's take 3 deep breaths. Together. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Once more, 3 deep breaths. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. One last time. 3 deep breaths. Together. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming today. And let's do a quick recap of what was discussed yesterday. Those of you who were there, do any of you remember any points from yesterday's discussion? Sorry? Yes. Destiny was the broad topic. But anything specific within destiny?
Smaller picture and bigger picture to see the karma and the sin.
Yes, that's a good point. So normally we see action and we get a proportionate result. But when there is a large action and a small result, then we need to consider a bigger picture, that there might be some negative action from the past that might be working to create the result. So that way we need to expand the picture. So action reaction correlation is there, but Sometimes we may be carrying a negative karma baggage from the past, which may lead to actions not leading to results in the present for us. Anything else? Any other points? Samskara. We didn't really discuss that too much. That's a major subject we're going to discuss today. But samskara are the impressions that are created in the mind. Yes, that's true.
And like Kala, Deva, Kala.
Yes, good. So there are broadly, you could have two extreme thought systems that we can say how results come. So when we do some action, normally I would expect that I'm polite with you, you should be polite with me. But if I am polite with you now, I have been in the past rude with you, then you may still be cold with me even if I am being polite right now. So when we do an action, the results come. There could be two broad worldviews. One is only our present actions matter. So that is what is called in the Vedic parlance as karmavad. That vad is an argument or an ideology or a worldview. So karma vad. That karma here refers to only our present actions matter. Then the other is only our past. That means our destiny matters. So destiny is basically our past actions accumulated together. That means whatever I do now, it's going to make no difference. Everything is destined. Everything is written in our palms or in our stars or whatever. So this is the other extreme, daivavad. So both of these are only partial pictures of reality. The more balanced understanding was that there are three factors. There is karma, the present action that we do. Then there is daiva, that is the past destiny that we have. And then there is kala. Kala is the time that we go through. And then all these three together lead to phala. Phala is the result. So we could call this as, if you want to remember this, 4 Ds: duty plus destiny plus duration, that leads to the desired result. So I gave 2 examples to illustrate this. Anyone remember any of the examples?
Yes.
Yeah?
Example of the farmer.
Yes. Farmer is, for the farmer they need to sow the seeds and plow the land. That is the duty right now. But then destiny is rains. Water supply basically rains have to come in the right time and the right quantity. And then after that, the season has to change. You don't get the harvest immediately. So time has to pass. After time passes, then finally the result will come. That is the harvest will come. What a second example?
The pregnancy of.
Yes. Say a couple wants to have a child, then their uniting is what their karma. But then union automatically doesn't lead to conception. So conception is due to the destiny. And even after conception, it's not the next day the child is born. There's a period of gestation. So this same dynamic applies in every area of life. 2 people want to do good at music, say. Now one person may have a lot of talent, and that talent they have that by daiva. And then they put in some effort, they're doing the karma. Everybody has to practice. Even geniuses need to practice. But the time they need to practice may be far lesser. So for them, if they have a lot of talent, so we could say, in terms of, okay, let's put it this way. So talent, that comes from daiva. We all have some, I didn't give this example yesterday, I'm building on that now. The talent will come from daiva. And generally, for a person to have a positive result to come out, everybody has some talent, but along with that, they need a certain level of commitment. Commitment is in terms of steadily doing some activity. So we could call that as karma. Now commitment also involves a certain amount of time, but karma is, okay, I am going to do this activity diligently. And then after commitment, then there has to be patience. So the patience, I put it here as the temperament. Temperament means, now temperament and commitment might be slightly related, but commitment is in terms of doing the activity. Temperament is in terms of facing the ups and downs. Like even a person who is very talented may sometimes meet with failure. They meet with failure, they may just give up. No, okay, we have all our bad days. Push through the bad days. So this is where we are able to go through the kala. And when you go through all these, then there is achievement. Achievement is the phala that we want to achieve. So for some people who have a lot of talent, maybe the temperament and commitment may not play such a big role. Like some people may be such geniuses that even if they have a bad temper, even if they have a bad work ethos, still other people tolerate them in spite of it all. And because they're just so good at their area. But somebody else may not have that much talent, and they may have to put in more temper. They may have to develop a much more even temperament. They may have to show a lot more commitment, and then they get what they need to get. So this dynamic of the past and the present working together is what leads to results. And then, so we were discussing basically how much does destiny control us yesterday. He said, yes, destiny determines our situations. But within those situations, what we do is up to us. So, as an example I gave about the scope for destiny and free will. You remember that example? What was the example? Yes. So alcohol was one example. It might be like somebody may be alcoholic. They may say that, I mean, alcoholic is a good example. It's also a bad example in the sense that the alcoholic's conditionings, we cannot say it is by destiny. But as an example, so alcoholic may say that I have to drink every 6 hours. Okay, but you can still choose what you do in between the drinks, isn't it? So that time a person can be a little sober and do some things useful. Or that person can be blaming everyone for how bad their life is and not do anything worthwhile. So another example was like a horse tied to a pole. And if there is a pole, okay, this doesn't look like a pole. You can see that by destiny, I don't have very good drawing skills. So I'm not going to draw a horse. I'll only embarrass myself. This is a horse. So the horse can move within the circumference of the rope, but beyond that it can't move. So we all have a certain range within which we have freedom. So today our topic we'll be exploring how our past actions and present actions they unfold. I mentioned one more point about destiny specifically. You remember that point? Are we the masters of our destiny?
No, we are the makers.
Makers.
Yes. So we discussed that it's a subtle but very significant difference. So masters would mean that we control it completely. We are not masters, but that doesn't mean we are puppets or slaves. We are the makers of our destiny. What that means is that if I'm going through this life and in the life journey, so we have a karma baggage that we are carrying, and this karma baggage from the past is what is essentially called as destiny. And there are certain installments of that baggage that are going to come upon us during the course of our life. And we can't avoid those. But when they come upon us, in this life, how we have lived will determine our capacity to deal with them. So, say maybe by our karma, if we are going to do some business, we are going to have some job, we are going to be cheated. Somebody close to us is going to cheat us financially. That's terrible. And that's going to happen. But if we have developed healthy financial habits and we learn to save and not spend too much and not take too much debt, and overall, people see that we are trustworthy and reliable. So when we run into financial problems because of that person betraying us, then our own habits will help us. We'll have some savings, And seeing our habits, people will also trust us. So the problem will still come, but our capacity to face the problem will be better. So I will build on this particular topic of how destiny and free will work together. So today I'll be talking more about the situations that we go through, and then in our on Sunday when we'll be discussing more about the psychological aspects. That does destiny make some people particularly, like I talked about spending money. Some people just seem to spend money and they can't stop spending money. It's like some people are alcoholics, some people are shopaholics. Now shop, 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 shop till you drop. It's like that. So is it something which is in our control? Is it not in our control? How much is it in our control? So all that we will discuss more. But before we go into that, now everything that I'm going to speak today is based, I'll summarize in this one particular diagram. It's like more like a 4-quadrant graph. It is our present actions and our past actions. So our present actions can be, this is the positive axis, this is the negative axis. Now, when I say present actions and past actions, what I mean by that is that by our past actions, if our past actions have been positive, then we have a positive destiny. We have some good credits with us. So if our past actions have been negative, say if somebody's past actions have been positive, then maybe they have a very healthy and robust body. So on the other hand, somebody's past actions have been negative, maybe their body is very sickly. Like some people, they just, if they eat a little bit wrong, or the digestion collapses, their body bloats out, and it just, they seem to be very, very frail. There are some other people who seem to treat their tongue like a conveyor belt. They eat anything and everything, and still they seem to remain slim and healthy and fit. Nothing seems to be happening to them. So, by the way, is my accent not clear, or is my pronunciation, am I going too fast? Is overall it's understandable? Okay. If at any time I'm not understandable, please help me understand that I'm not understandable. So feel free to let me know, I'll slow down. By my destiny, I think too fast. And when I start trying to speak as fast as my thoughts are going, it just becomes difficult. So I'll try to go slow. But this is a concept that is very, I am quite excited about this, because this contains a very valuable insight for us to face life when it brings some negative situations in our life. So let's consider these 4 quadrants. But before we go into that, say, how does our past affect our present? Say, there are some thieves who live in a particular locality. They're not a gang of thieves, they're all independent thieves. They all want to rob. And they come to know in a particular bank, a big cash deposit has come over there. And say 6 thieves, they all plan, I'm going to rob this bank. And now all of them plan, but 5 of them fail. Something goes wrong, this goes wrong, that goes wrong. The 6th one succeeds. Now, why did one person succeed and other people fail? Now, the robbing is of course bad karma. But life is so paradoxical, almost ironical, that to do bad karma, you need good karma. The thieves who succeeded in robbing, why did that thief succeed and others fail? It's because that thief had some positive karma from the past. And that's why they succeeded. Now does that mean that thief had to rob? No. by the positive karma from the past, whatever endeavor the thief may have tried, they would have been successful. If that thief had tried to build a business, they would have been successful. If now the thief tried to rob, became successful. Like somebody becomes not just a gangster, but a gang leader. Now they may rule by fear, but still, even to become a gang leader, a person has to have some leadership abilities. Now, if they had decided to use those leadership abilities more constructively, they could have become something successful. So the point is that when there is success at present, for present success, present efforts are required, present karma is required. But some past karma is also required. So consider like some kid in school is very mean. But that kid is mean, but is a weakling. You know, that king doesn't have a very strong body, that king doesn't have any good friends, that kid doesn't have any good friends. The kid might be mean, but how much harm can that kid do? Maybe the kid is not even very tech savvy, otherwise they can spread gossip and hack people's accounts and do terrible things. But suppose the kid is mean, but is not very intelligent, not very physically strong, not very sociable to have friends. Then what is going to happen is, if the present actions are negative and the past actions are negative also, then what is going to be, they are like, that person, it may be, it's like mean, but relatively harmless. You're getting this? The person like this, somebody may want to hurt others, but they don't have the capacity to hurt others. So if somebody's present karma is bad and past karma is bad, then that's a bad situation, but not a very bad situation. Everybody gets angry. Somebody is short-tempered, but they don't have much capacity to act out on their anger. And they can't harm others much. Now, somebody's present actions are good, but their past actions are bad. That means, you know, somebody, say, is very hardworking. They work in a project or a company, but they work and somebody else is a little bit more domineering and they take the credit and the person doesn't get the credit at all. So this is frustrating at times. Yet, if we understand the karma philosophy, it can become bearable. Not only bearable, it can actually lead to growth. I'll explain how this can happen. Now, if the past actions are good and the present actions are good, that is the best, isn't it? Like somebody is talented, but then they are also a good person. Talented means they have the abilities from the past, and they are also basically, their basic character is good, they are kind, they are helpful. Then they are like a light for the world. And not only they don't have a small candle, they can have a large light that they can share with the world. So if the past actions and the present actions both are good, then we could say that is the best situation. Now, actually, if the past actions are good and the present actions are bad, this is the worst situation. Because what is going to happen? Due to past good actions, that person has power. That person has capacities. But then the present actions are bad, so they will keep harming others. And they will succeed in harming others. You know, everybody may like to gossip about others, isn't it? You know, when you gossip, when does gossip happen? You know, when you go, especially if you are in an office, you go to a water cooler for a sip. You go for a sip and you gossip. So, so now everybody may like to gossip. Generally, when do we gossip? Basically, there are two conditions. It's when we hear something we like. We hear something we like about someone we don't like. So if we like that person, that even if we hear something bad about that person, okay, I don't really have to share about it. If I hear something good, I will share. If I hear something bad, then maybe, and I don't want to talk about it. I want to find out. I want to clarify. If we like someone and we hear something good about them, we hear something we like, we will want to share, and that's good. But when does gossip happen? When we hear something we like, that means something is like a delicious bit of negative news about that person. Oh, this person pretends to be so good, but this is the reality of this person. And in public interest, now I'll share this with everyone. So now somebody may want to gossip. But if somebody is saying today they just like very tech savvy, they hack into somebody's social media account and find out their secrets, and then they share it, and they share it in such a way that they have an anonymous account, is spread very widely, and that it can be a nightmare for the person. There can be physical assassination, there can be character assassination. And so if somebody has past good karma, by which they have abilities now, they have strengths, but their present karma is bad, then so whereas this person can be a light for the world, such a person can be a nightmare for the world, a burden for the world, even a terror for the world. So now, if you look at these 4 broad points over here, that our past actions are not in our control. Our present actions are what are in our control. And now, ideally speaking, if we move from this path, if this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, best is we would like to be in 4. And in our present life, when I say past actions can be good, past actions can be bad, what it means is not that everybody's past actions are always bad. We all go through phases. So sometimes when a phase is bad, when we go through a negative phase, that means some negative actions from our past are unfolding. So it's not that throughout our life we will be in one of these phases only. In one of these quadrants. We can go through different quadrants. So now, as I said, our present actions are in our control. Our past actions are not in our control. But whatever past actions are there, they create a phase. So sometimes the phase might be positive, sometimes the phase might be negative. So it is important to understand like which phase am I going through right now. So in one sense you could say life is like a tennis match. In a tennis match, the player is sometimes serving and the player is sometimes returning. Now when we are serving, at that time, relatively speaking, we have more control. We can choose whether to serve into the body of the opposite player, if they have a weak backhand, and attack their backhand, at what height, at what pace, we all have that choices. But when we are returning, it's basically we just have to get the racket to the ball and get the ball back into play. So we have less control at that. And similarly, based on whether our so by our destiny, sometimes we'll be in situations where we have more freedom, more scope. Sometimes we may have less scope. But when these changes are going on in our lives, there is something which is always available for us. That is the choice of our present actions. So yesterday I mentioned this point that the essential implication of karma is not so much punishment, that you did something so you have to suffer now. It is encouragement that our actions matter even when they don't seem to matter. That right now I'm trying to do the right thing, but there are no results coming. That does not mean doing the right thing is worthless. It just means that I'm going through a negative phase right now. And because of that negative phase, I am not getting the results. So when we look at the philosophy of karma, okay, the implication, it could be negative in terms of saying punishment. Oh, I don't know what karma I've done in the past and I'm suffering right now. But the essential implication is positive. It is encouragement. That I'm trying to do something now, it's not working, but that does not mean it is useless. It may take more time for things to manifest their results. So sometimes we may be learning a particular skill, and there might be maybe we are in a particular place where we are not being encouraged. Say we get a new job and the workplace is maybe a bit terrible, even toxic. Well, I just want to leave this right now, but maybe that's the only job we have. We need that particular job, and we survive that. Then what is happening is we may not get success over there. We may not win people over immediately, but we will learn how to deal with difficult people. We will learn how to endure and grow through such situations, and that could be good for us in the long run. So when we are facing difficult situations, sometimes, especially when those difficult situations seem to be unfair, I'm trying to do my best, and why is this person doing like this? Why am I being treated like this? So there are, of course, situations at times when we should just change the situation. This is too toxic. I just want to leave. I want to get out of here, and it may be required, no doubt. But that alone may not be the solution, because sometimes we do need to learn by going through difficulties. So if we are put in a situation where things don't seem to change despite our efforts, the philosophy of karma can give us a broader vision of how can I look at this situation? How can I move through the situation? So I'll talk about, based on this, when we are facing difficulties. As I said, I'm right now focusing on the outer aspect of the karma. That when by our destiny, we are put in a particular situation. So how do we deal with that situation? Should I just consider, oh, the situation is because of my karma, and so I should just live with it? Or should I change the situation? Like yesterday I mentioned that if we start thinking, because this is because of my past karma, so I just, that is not meant to make me passive. That is not meant to make me helpless. It is actually meant to help me become introspective, to see what is actually required for me to do in this particular situation. So sometimes it is that we may need to change the situation. So I'll use an acronym MET, MET. So when we face difficult situations, when we face difficulties, tough situations, we have broadly 3 approaches for dealing with the situation. First is mitigate. Mitigate means we act to change the situation. Second is emigrate. We just leave that situation. I don't want to get, this is too messy. I don't want to get involved in this. Now the third is tolerate. How do I decide what to do? These are anything we can consider. If we are in a relationship and the relationship is not working, we may say, okay, I want to stand up for myself. This person cannot keep treating me like this. And sometimes we may need to have a confrontation. And who knows what the result of the confrontation might be. But sometimes through those hard discussions, we might come to a better understanding of each other. So that is mitigating. The way you are working with me, I don't like this. Sometimes you may emigrate, I just want to end this. I don't want to be involved in this. Sometimes you may decide, I want to tolerate, okay. Yeah, this person has this particular quirk, I don't like this. But there are other things I like about this person, so I'll tolerate this. Same way it is good like with a job. So maybe like I said the work culture is not very good. So we may decide, I'm going to talk with my colleagues, I'm going to talk with my boss, I'm going to complain about this, express my concerns, and hopefully situations change. Or I may decide that this is just not working, I'm going to leave this job, I may emigrate. Or we may decide that, okay, this is the way the things are in this particular place, and all the job work culture is bad, but the pay is good, I need the money right now, so I'm going to tolerate it. So all three could be valid approaches. But how does our understanding of karma shape it? So should we think that, okay, I'm put in this bad situation by my karma, so by karma means my past karma, so should I just live with it and I should not try to change it at all, so I should just tolerate it? Or should I change the situation? Now, broadly speaking, there is the Western worldview and there's the Eastern worldview. Now, in the West also there are many different, you could say, cultures and ideas and philosophies. In the East also there are many different cultures and philosophies. So, although I'm generalizing, I'm not absolutizing over here. There will always be exceptions. So, in general, in the East, the culture is more of tolerate. Okay, these are difficulties. Just don't get so worked up about it. Just manage it. Nothing is easy in the world. One of the starting truths in the Buddhist thought, it's similar to what the Gita says, is that the first truth of life is dukkha. And it's interesting, I say this is a noble truth. That now, why is it considered noble truth? We'll discuss later. But there is dukkha everywhere, and trying to run away from it is not going to solve the problem. So there'll always be problems everywhere. So just learn to tolerate it. So broadly, that is the Eastern approach. The Gita also says this world is dukkhalaya, that this is a place of distress. Now, as I said, I don't want to generalize, because in the West also, in the Bible also, there's the idea the world is a vale of tears. So that idea that there is distress, and to some extent distress is unavoidable, that leads to the idea that tolerate. The problems are there, learn to tolerate them. Now, mitigate or emigrate is more of the Western approach. That doesn't mean it's not done in the East, but okay, if this particular, in India there have been hardly any revolutions where the masses rebelled against the king. Yes, there was the Indian struggle for independence, but in Europe, for example, in the West, there have been a lot of revolutions. When the king is tyrannical, we will destroy the king. So that is, we revolt, that is mitigate. It's a problem, fight to fix the problem. Or just emigrate. This is not a good place, we'll just go somewhere else. The whole of America started because those who went on Mayflower, they found that they were being persecuted in Europe, so they went to America. So that is emigrate. So overall, when we face problems, we could take any of these approaches. We could just live with it, or we either change the place where we are living, or we, in the sense that we fight against the situation, or we just go away from that situation. Now, when we are trying to do this, each of these could be done in a healthy way and in an unhealthy way. Now, when tolerate, it can go towards a negative, when what we end up is, we end up not just tolerating, but we suffocate. That we are just, in the name of tolerating, we are not able to do anything at all. Now, mitigate, it can become negative when we go towards retaliate. Rather than fixing the situation, we start becoming revengeful. You did this to me, so I'm going to do this to you. And then it can just lead to a cycle of vengeance that can sometimes go over generations, or at least years and decades. So rather than mitigate is more like fix the situation. Fight to fix the situation. Retaliate is you just want to hit back at the other person. We become fixated with getting the other person down or knocking out the other person. Now, emigrate, it can be done negative in terms of running away. Wherever escapism. Wherever there is a problem, oh, this is not a good place, I'll just go away from here. So, all of these approaches can be done negatively. And the negative in the sense that is unhealthy. So broadly, when we are facing difficult situations, what approach do we take to deal with a difficult situation? So I am in this difficulty. How much of this is due to my past karma and I can't escape it, so I should just live with it? Or how much is it dependent on my present karma? And I need to change it. So if I am sick, can I say, oh, the sickness is all because of my past karma, so I should not go to a doctor at all? No, that would be foolish. Yeah, that sickness is there, but I also have some present responsibility. I need to use my intelligence and approach a proper treatment methodology. And now we may have tried out allopathy and we find it has a lot of side effects. So most of you are yoga practitioners. So now we are practicing yoga. We are all doing yoga in some way or the other. So that is, you found that, okay, the present actions have to be done, but I have to do it intelligently. I don't want to just take pills in my body which will have their own side effects or whatever. So my present actions also I can select intelligently. Now, when we are trying to choose, what should I do? So now, if we focus only on tolerating, the problem with this is that there is physical stagnation. That means people don't work to change the situation. This is unfortunately seen in India. When Indian philosophical thought was discovered by the colonialists when they came to India, then there are some American thinkers, they're called the transcendentalists, Emerson and Thoreau and others. They were fascinated. They didn't travel to India, but they're fascinated by Indian thought. But some of them, they came to India, and one of them made a very striking observation. He said, how is it that the thoughts of these people are so lofty, but their streets are so filthy? That these people thought such great things, but why is their lifestyle and why is their country and everything so poor, so pathetic? Not just poverty, but just a general sense of apathy. So now there could be historical and geopolitical reasons for it. But one aspect is that if too much is accepted, oh, it's all destined, then a person doesn't lead, but doesn't try to improve things at the material level. And okay, it's all destined, this is just the way it is, live with it. Now, if a person is focused too much on either retaliating or running away, then that leads to mental agitation. This is something which many people in the West are experiencing, and India also, East is also becoming westernized. This is happening. See, when we lack a sense of acceptance, some things are just not in our control. That's just the way life is. I need to accept it. And every situation, you did this, like I'm going to hit back at you. You did this, I'm just going to leave this place. Then our mind can't have steadiness. So if we don't accept that there are some things that are not in our control, and sometimes bad things just happen, and we need to have that capacity to accept that. If we lack that, then the mind starts becoming wild. Now, mental health is a complex issue, and I'm not going to do a single factor analysis where I reduce mental health problems to just this one cause. But it is a very important factor. I'll just explain how this happens. Say loss is something that everyone faces in life. Now, loss is external, it's an event. So we could say a loss may come to me by destiny. By my past karma, it might be I apply for a job, or I have a job and I lose the job. I'm in a relationship and some other relationship ends. That's a loss. Now that's an event. Now the experience of the event. That means event is external. The experience of the event is internal. So how do I experience the event? That will depend on not just the state of my mind, that's important of course, but also depends on our overall worldview, our self-conception. So at one level, I may say, I have lost. And that's a fairly objective valuation. Yeah, I had this and I lost it now. Now, a more damaging experience could be, I am lost. I had put my entire life into this particular relationship. That person was the center of my life. That person just abandoned me. Oh, that person has betrayed me. I can't be with that person. What am I going to do now? Where am I going to go? Oh, this was a career I was pursuing. I was an athlete, and now I got a physical injury that has ended my career. What am I going to do now? So I am lost. That is a more damaging interpretation. But the most damaging interpretation would be, I am a loser. Now, when a person starts interpreting like this is toxic. This is so toxic that a person may even become suicidal. If, say, somebody has a terrible end to a relationship, and by that, start thinking, maybe I'm unloved and I'm unlovable. There's something wrong within me because just nobody will ever love me. That can be a terrible state of mind to be in. I am a loser. Now, sometimes because of destiny, we may be going through a bad phase. We apply for one job and things go wrong and we lose that job. We apply for a second job and we lose that job. And we apply for a third job and we lose that job. And it is possible to start thinking, I'm a loser. And if you start thinking like that, then what is a problem? We're not denying it's a problem, but a small problem can become excessively big. So sometimes we do need to take responsibility. Okay, I messed up over here and I need to improve myself. But sometimes it is not that I messed up things, it is life is a mess, the world is a mess. And even without we messing up things, we might be just treated very badly by life. So at such times, if we don't have that understanding of a broader understanding of past karma, then what will happen is we will end up beating ourselves down too much. Now, what exactly is the mind and how it works, that we'll be talking about in future sessions. But the mental dimension of karma also we'll talk about. But right now, this understanding that when we face a bad situation, sometimes it may not be because of our actions. You may say it's all because of our actions in terms of past actions. That is true. But that's not in our control. In my present control, what is there? So considering whether a particular thing went wrong because of something I did, or it is something I did in the present, or it's because of something beyond me, that is very important. So I mentioned this point that we can either mitigate, immigrate, or tolerate. So to some extent, when a person has the capacity to tolerate, then their mental agitation becomes lesser. Yeah, sometimes just things happen, bad things happen in life. So let me just accept it and move on. That's the capacity to tolerate. And sometimes the word tolerate, it's also associated with resilience. More positive word is grit or resilience. Life knocks us down, we're still ready to rise up. And so how do I evaluate that when I am doing something and it's not working out? Is it because of my present karma? Is it because of my past karma? And more importantly, what should I do? Should I just live with it or should I try to change it? So now to answer this question, we will have to go into psychological dimensions, but which we'll be doing in future sessions. But I'll make one last point as a continuation of this point, and then we'll have question answers. Here, when we are trying to make decisions, it's important to try to be as objective as possible. That our own mind and what role it plays, like this is the event is external, the experience is internal. So to try to separate, this is more objective, what actually happened, this is more subjective. So the subjective experience is important, but especially when we are making decisions, we need to try to be as objective as possible. So for being objective, it is important to consider that, okay, I am in this situation right now. What has landed me in this situation? Now, sometimes it is just possible that like the work culture in a particular place is toxic. A particular person is toxic. And it's best to just leave that place, leave that person. But sometimes that might not be the solution. So the thing that is required for this, there are many aspects, but one key that is required is introspection. So I'll talk about three broad things. There is introspection, association. Introspection is our own capacity to look at ourselves carefully. So for example, when I am going through life, introspection is where I am here and I'm walking through life, but it's like I raise myself above myself and I look down. Okay, what did I do? And what was I thinking at this particular time? What was this person thinking when they did that? How did I respond? So one powerful tool for introspection is journaling. And I will talk about journaling in our retreat when we have that will be a major part of our session. But having the capacity for introspection. So that is very helpful. Now, association is one of the biggest correlators for mental health is relationships. If a person is lonely, then they're much more likely to succumb to more mental health problems. So what happens? I'll talk about the mind a bit more, but just a quick understanding. See, I am here. I means I am the soul. And my mind is here. So it is through my mind that I look at everyone else. So if, say, in the past, people have been sweet talkers and they have exploited me, taken me for a ride, then what happens? Most people we look at through our mind. That means if somebody is talking sweetly with me, the first thought is, what does this person want? Why this person? What is the interest of this person? Now, it could be that that person has some selfish motivation, is trying to exploit us. It could also be that person is actually a nice person. But for most people, we look at them through our mind. And that's natural, that's the way we work. But if we have a close relationship, then what happens is I am here, my mind is here, and this person comes here. So what happens is I look at my mind through this person. Otherwise, what happens normally? We would look at that person through our mind. So what does this mean? For example, something bad has happened to me. Say, let's go back to the point that I am a loser. So, I tried this and this didn't work. I tried this and this didn't work. I tried this and didn't work. I'm a loser. Nothing is going to work. What is the point of even living? Somebody started to think like that. But if they have a close friend, or they have somebody who's close to them, and that person says, okay, yes, you went through this particular situation, but this happened, you couldn't have predicted this. This was a bad decision, but you learned from that and you tried to work it over here. But here when things went wrong, it was because of a different situation, not the same thing being repeated. Whatever. The point is, when we have our mind and our mind is telling us, you are a fool, you are a loser, you are a terrible person. It can be the opposite way also. Our mind can tell us that we are better than what we think we are, or we can be worse than what we are, whichever way it is. We need someone else to help us look at our mind. You're thinking like this, and this is where you are right, but this is where you might be a little off. You need to evaluate it. So having good association helps us to look at our mind. And this is where the idea of satsang, sangha or satsanga, good association. There is association of spiritually minded people, saintly people. The idea is that those who are truly spiritually minded, they are not interested in material gains from us. Everybody in the world is mostly materialistic and they want something from us. Now, even spiritually minded people may have some material motivations at times, but their concern is more for us. And that's why if we have good association, we have trustworthy association, then that helps us to be able to look at our mind and try to understand the situation more objectively. There is no way to understand the situation fully objectively because we are subjective human beings. But it is a large help. And the last point I'll talk about is meditation. Now, introspection and meditation might seem the same, but when I talk about introspection, it is more of self-observation. Meditation, I'm using this, it's more in terms of connecting with something higher, with something bigger. We meditate on a higher reality. So for example, when we are doing the kirtan, we're meditating on the sacred sound, or rather we are meditating on the sacred through the sound. So meditation, what it does, it actually purifies us. It changes the samskaras in our mind. And it changes the narrative, the story that our mind is telling us. That we will discuss more. But these three things, I use the acronym AIM for this. When you want to take AIM, what is the problem? Association, introspection, meditation. These three things can actually help us come to sounder decisions. When I'm facing this particular situation, should I just accept this, or should I try to fix this, or should I just move away from it? How do I decide that? It's not there's no one size fit all formula. It is something which requires careful contemplation, and that can happen in one sense through an internal resource, through an external resource, and through a divine resource. So it's more like social, personal, and devotional or divine resource. So all of these can help us in better decision making, in better moving forward. So to some extent, the meditation that we do, that is our sadhana. Now introspection can also be a part of our sadhana, but so satsang and sadhana, these two things can help us arrive at better decisions in our life. So I'll summarize what we discussed. So now is to take all these three aspects, but morely association, introspection, meditation, especially introspection and meditation. These two will be focusing in our one-day retreat that we're going to have on Saturday, where we'll go deeper into understanding that why does our mind work the way it works? When we make bad decisions, what prompts us sometimes to make bad decisions? How much can we correct that? All that we will discuss in that session. But to summarize here, I discussed three main points today. So today our topic was dealing with our past or getting past our past. Yesterday we discussed how much does our past influence us. Then today I discussed 3 points. The first was this quadrant diagram, that our present action and our past actions. So we discussed how this is mean but weak, not a terrible situation. So this is bad, but it can be bearable. It becomes bearable with wisdom. This is the best. If my past and present karma are both good, But if my past karma is good and my present is bad, that is the worst situation to be in. Or rather, my past is good and the present is bad. So what happens is we will become, one person can become a light for the world, and other person can become a nightmare for the world. So, okay, so now I'm trying to decide that my present karma, I want to do good. But how do I decide that? So for that we discussed that when we face difficulties, we could have three broad approaches to deal with difficulties. So one is, so what are three broad things? M-E, what is M?
Mitigation.
Mitigate. Mitigate is fight against the situation to correct the situation. This could be done negatively as retaliate. Now we make it our agenda not to fix the situation, but to hit back at the other person, which is not positive. E was? Immigrate. So this is move out of the situation. This could be done negatively as running away. Yeah, we may escape and then we just keep running away from one, two, and many situations like that. T is tolerate. Now tolerated could become negative as, yeah, we let ourselves stay in a situation where we can do nothing. So broadly, the East is generally involved in tolerating, where okay, life is difficult and there is dukkha, just live with it. But this, while it can lead on a positive side, on negative side, it can lead to physical stagnation, physical apathy, where people don't go through it. On a positive side, this can actually bring a certain level of mental stability. That, yeah, even if tough things happen, you need to learn to live with it. Now, this is broadly the ideology of the West. On a negative side, this can lead to mental instability, because our mind goes wild when things go wrong. Although, on a positive side, it can lead to physical progress. And that is what has happened in the West. That because we don't just accept situations, we try to fix the situations. So a lot of scientific progress has happened by that. So both these approaches can be valid. And to understand which one to do. So I discussed about the role of the mind. So the mind can interpret things when there's a loss. I have lost. I am lost. I am a loser. So I am a loser is a toxic way of looking at things, and we would like to avoid that. So to avoid this, we discussed that we can consider broadly three factors, okay, to decide. That was AIM. For decide, so to interpret situations in a healthy way. What was caused by my past karma and I should accept it. What was caused by my present and it depends on my present, so I should try to change the situation. So A was association. Association helps us to look at our mind more objectively with the help of taking in others' inputs. Then I was introspection. Introspection is where we try to take time out to look at ourselves from a perspective of ourselves. And then M was meditation. Meditation is, so association and introspection are more about evaluating our mind. But meditation is more about elevating our mind. We're not just evaluating it, hey, this is right, this is wrong. This is the way some voice inside me is speaking, but this is where it is right or wrong. But meditation is about elevating a mind. So we need both these approaches. These two are for evaluating our mind. What is the inner voice that is telling me, is it right or wrong? So through this, we can gradually learn to make better decisions in our life. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments? Okay. Yes. Do we have a mic? Yeah. Yes, please.
When you talk about
Okay. Can you just give it a hand?
no,
We'll come back
I
to you.
didn't want to be that loud, but
Sure, don't-
here we are. So, when you talk about past actions, do you only refer to the past actions from the current life or past actions from past lives as well?
Past lives as well,
Huh.
because they also affect us. Sometimes some of our situations may come from past actions in this life, but sometimes they're not from this life at all. Say if we are born in a particular country where there's a lot of political instability and political violence, we have not done anything to do that, to be there. So that's largely because of past actions. So both. But primarily, when we are talking about past actions, it is more in terms of things that are unchangeable for us. So that's from the past life.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
So how to define a karma to be positive or negative? Because as you said yesterday, there is nothing black or white. Everything is gray. And for example, it is supposed that if we donate something to someone, it is considered to be a good karma. But suppose if I donate someone some money, and that person goes and buys alcohol from that money and does some crime or beats his wife, then is it a good karma or a bad karma?
Okay. So I'm right now, it's an important question, but let's start with where we are right now. So when we are talking about our present action and present choices, I am simply talking in terms of, okay, I am in this situation right now, how do I deal with this situation? So, okay, I'm in a bad job, I'm in a difficult relationship, I'm in a bad health situation. So how do I deal with that? Yes, we can say I could give some charity and all that, but how do I deal with that situation? That's what I'm focusing on right now. So in the Mahabharata, Krishna tells Arjuna that this is not in the Bhagavad Gita, it's a separate dialogue, that in this world adversities happen to everyone. Bad things happen to the wise people and the unwise people, everyone. But the difference is that when faced with adversities, the wise act in ways that will make things better, whereas the unwise act in ways that will make things worse. So when I'm talking about good actions and bad actions over here, right now I'm simply talking about I'm in this situation, what can I do to deal with this situation? Is tolerating a particular situation simply going to make it worse, where the other person keeps exploiting me more and more? Or is tolerating going to let this person will leave me alone and I can go on with my work and I will move ahead? So it depends. There's no black and white answer. I'm talking about it in those terms right now. But coming to your specific question, so when you talk about right action or wrong action, I'm talking more here in terms of pragmatic terms. Pragmatic means in terms of its effect. What will help to improve the situation? What will lead to worsening the situation? So when somebody asks me a question, I tend to give long answers. So now, is that a good thing, is a bad thing? But it depends on what kind of question is asked, what kind of context I am in. So sometimes I may have to curtail the answer. So I'm talking more in terms of pragmatic terms. Now you could talk about right action in ethical terms, where we're talking about what are the karmic consequences in the long run. So with respect to charity, when you talk about it, so generally there are three factors to be considered in ethics. This is the Mahabharata also talks about it. That whenever we're trying to decide the content of action, the intent of action, and the consequence of action. Whenever I'm trying to decide what is right or wrong, what exactly is being done, why is it being done, and what is the result of doing it. And there are entire ethical schools or ethical schools of thought which prioritize one over the other. So some people may absolutize one of these or prioritize content. So charity is a good thing. And giving charity is, if wealthy people give charity, that's what can mitigate so much of the suffering in the world. So anybody who gives charity is a good person. So that's one way of looking at it. Now, another way of looking at it could be that many times people give charity to just look good in people's eyes. That there is porn, sexual porn. There is what is called poverty porn also. That means you show very terrible images of poverty, and then people give a lot of charity, and then people, their concern is not so much helping others as feeling good about themselves. So charity is more like a photo op for some people. So there the intent is more to show charity becomes like a social cosmetic rather than a social cure. So the intent is important. The consequence also is important. Okay, when I'm giving charity, is it actually helping the person? Or is it letting the person harm them? Is it enabling the person to harm them? Like say if somebody is an addict, and if they are given money, then what are they going to do with that money? They're most likely to harm themselves. So now a holistic vision will consider all these three things. Now which should be considered more important, which should be considered less important, that has to be decided upon time, place, circumstance. But all three factors need to be considered.
But we cannot see the consequence.
So generally speaking, as far as possible, we should try to see the consequence. So if somebody is poor, instead of giving them money, we could give them food. Food is not so easy to abuse. Or instead of giving a person just money, try to give them a job. So if they take up a job, that will solve that problem in a more effective way. So within our capacity, we try to see whether all three can be positively affected. Okay? Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Like I want to ask the question about, it's like very rarely discussed in the conversations, and it's more related to psychology also. Like how would you define like the suicide? Like in India also, it's growing a lot. Like India is like one of the, how to say, the most affected country for the suicide also, because we are the youngest country in the world. So how would you define and correlate to the karma, the suicide, and how? I would like to ask for this. Thank you.
Well, suicide is tragic whenever it happens. Now, essentially, suicide from a psychological perspective, what is happening is basically it is the mind is killing the body. Basically, now there are times when people are starving and they are in terrible pain and they end their life. But more often, it's more like psychological pain than physical pain. So the mind loses hope. The mind suicide is the ultimate, you could say, the ultimate triumph of despair over hope. We all need some hope in life. And when there is no hope left and there's only despair. So in terms of karma, it's not that anybody is ever forced to commit suicide. Suicide is at one level a choice. And now can somebody be put in situations where that can seem not only a feasible option, but the only feasible option? Well, yes, they can be put in those situations, but I doubt whether somebody can be put in those situations entirely by past karma. Yeah, like I said, sometimes terrible things can happen. Suppose somebody at the same time loses their job, and at the same time there's a recession or there's some stock market crash and they lose all their money at the same time. At the same time, maybe their spouse or partner leaves them. At the same time, they're diagnosed with a serious disease. Now, 4 serious problems coming at the same time. It can break anyone down. But if they have lived their life in such a way that they have tried to cultivate relationships, they have tried to develop friends, they have tried to live in a healthy way, then they will also have some resources to deal with that. So if somebody has been, say, unidimensional, only pursuing success, or some people are not seeking any deep relationship, they are just seeking just superficial sexual experiences without any deep connections, then they just become extremely lonely at that time. They feel they have been using others, and when they are of no use to others for the situation, then why they may not have anyone with them. So the situations that can prompt one to suicide may come because of past karma. But in general, we'll talk about our past can, what can, or how does our past lead to our present? The past never compels, but it can impel. Impel means push us toward particular choices, but compel is to force. Like somebody is born in a bad neighborhood. Now there, it is that bad neighborhood. Bad neighborhood means that everybody drinks over there, everybody does some crime over there. It's quite likely that they will also get into those kind of habits and behaviors. But it's not necessary. So there is always some room for free will. So suicide is like that. That's why at an individual level, a person should try to cultivate support systems. And society should also be providing support systems. It's not just in terms of mental health counseling. So while suicide is often considered to be a mental health problem, and having suicide helplines or having access to mental health services is important, but there is a social and a philosophical aspect to it. That when you want to consider suicide prevention, that there is the psychological aspect to it, but it's not only a psychological problem. That's how it is mostly being reduced to in today's world. But there is also a social dimension to it.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, how much I have a friend in California who is a therapist. He said that actually after the pandemic ended, there was not a pandemic, but there was a huge surge in people coming with mental health problems. Because humans are not meant to live like a lockdown alone for so long. So social support is important. And there is the philosophical aspect, philosophical spiritual aspect also. What is the worldview that I have? And if somebody understands the worldview or has a worldview which can accommodate suffering, accommodate even unfair, undeserved, seemingly unbearable suffering, then that is easier for them to deal with it. That's why it's one correlation of people, if you have some religious or spiritual practices, then there are many mental health, many studies show that such people are less prone to suicide. Not that they're not at all, but much less prone. So if we have a worldview that can accommodate unfair suffering in life, that's very helpful also.
Thank you very much.
Do we have time for questions? Yes, please.
Hello, sir. Sorry, my voice is a little broken, but I will try to make it. So I understand the concept of karma as a personal karma, but in some situation it seems like karmas are interconnected between people. Let's say as I was single before, I had my own karma, but now I'm married and I'm living with my husband, and I feel like sometimes his karma affect my karma, and you can extend this to your family, like parents and all, but his karma has nothing to do with mine, but still I feel like it also affects my life at some extent. So how can you explain this?
Yes, it does affect that. Like, say we are born in a particular country, we are born in a particular family, and say the family we are born in is poor or the family we are born in is wealthy. That is a big installment of our own karma coming through that family situation. So now in a particular situation, where does my karma end and where does someone else's karma begin? It's especially when we are in a relationship, it's very difficult to try to evaluate that. Like yesterday I mentioned that I got this polio because the vaccine that was given to me was defective. That basically it was too much because of the refrigeration being off in that particular fridge. What happened was that the polio vaccine ended up having too much polio virus in it, and that gave the. So now, to what extent was it because of my past karma? To what extent is it the doctor's responsibility? To what extent can I say it was my mother took me to that doctor? Maybe my mother could have taken me to some other doctor. And these are difficult situations. So, in general, if we start trying to very rigidly separate, this is your karma and this is my karma, then relationships will become very difficult. So, to some extent, one aspect of forming a relationship is that relationship becomes a buffer for both people for dealing with life's challenges. So sometimes I'm going through a bad karma phase, and my family, my friends, they will help me in that time. And sometimes they're going through a bad phase, and I help them at that time. So trying to too rigidly analyze what is whose karma, that can make things complicated. Of course, we can say that, say if one person falls sick, then it's their karma, but because we are in that relationship, then we have to take care of them. So if somebody has a child who is autistic, now autistic children can also be brilliant in their own way at times, but they need a lot more, support in terms of parenting than what other children need. So it is a difficult situation. So here, I didn't get time to introduce this concept, but there is the concept of dharma. Dharma in this context means duty. So I'll talk more about this in our future sessions, but since you brought this question, the key point is not what is whose karma. The key point is what is my dharma? What is the responsible thing for me to do in this situation? What is my responsibility? If we start analyzing what is whose karma, we can become very heartless. Say for example, if a mother has a newborn baby and the newborn baby is crying, should the mother think that, oh, this is the baby's karma because of which the baby is crying? That would be not just heartless but monstrous, isn't it? Now, at the same time, sometimes it can happen that the baby has some disease, and no matter how much the mother tries to comfort the baby, no matter how much the mother tries to offer the treatment to the baby, still the baby is crying. So after we have done our dharma, after we have done our part, if things don't get fixed, at that time we can accept that this is my karma and I need to live with it. But if we start jumping to people's past karma right in the beginning, that will lead to no responsible relationship being possible, isn't it? Say if somebody is robbed and they go to the police, and the police say it was your own karma that you got robbed. The point here is, whenever somebody is suffering, whenever there is suffering, our focus should not be on their karma. Our focus should be on our dharma. The police is being paid to prevent crime. That is their job right now. Now, can police completely wipe out crime? No, they can't. So sometimes the police may try to find something that has been robbed, and sometimes they succeed, sometimes they don't succeed. Now, after trying, if they don't succeed, then we can say that okay, it's karma is involved. Now, of course, the police should not be saying that, but the person can accept it that way. So, in general, when a person is going through difficulties, it may be their karma, but we should see it that this is an opportunity for me to grow. That ultimately we all need to learn selflessness, we all need to learn service attitude. So this is my dharma, and in helping others deal with negative karma, their negative karma, you could look at positively that I am creating positive karma. In the sense that a parent who takes care of an autistic child, they're actually doing far more efforts. So even if in terms of pious credits we don't think about it, but surely in terms of character growth, the level of selflessness that comes generally in any relationship, I'll talk more about this. See, whenever there's a relationship, most relationships are transactional. Transactional means that I do something for you and you do something for me. And that's fair enough. But if I go to a shop, I just buy something and I give you some money. But there are relationships that can also be transformational. So transformational means two things happen. Through that relationship, I come closer to you and you come closer to me. That's one transformation. But another is that through that relationship, I become better and you become better. So through that relationship, I can go closer to the divine and you can go closer to the divine. So in today's world, this transformational aspect of relationships has been very much downplayed. And that's why what happens is, if I'm not getting anything in the relationship, why be there in the relationship? Just quit it. But that way then society itself cannot be sustained if people cannot have trustworthy relationships. Now, again, we cannot take this to an extreme. Say, if somebody is in an abusive relationship. See, this one thing is, like somebody is suffering because of their past karma. And we support them at that time. But if somebody is at present doing bad karma, then supporting them may not be a healthy thing. Say, if somebody is an alcoholic, and we may want to help them. But sometimes what happens is there are codependents. And if they are enabling the alcoholic, every time the alcoholic makes a mess and they clean it up. That person squanders all the money, the other person works doubly hard to earn money and they squander it again. At that time, so when the suffering is coming, if it is coming because of past karma, means that person's past karma, then we can accept it and we can say, this is something which I have to go through also that's just part of responsible relationships. But if it's coming because of their present karma, then enabling an alcoholic is actually worsening their addiction. Sometimes we say, if you're going to continue this, then there are going to be consequences. I'm not going to be with you. I'm going to put some boundaries. So if somebody is abusing that relationship or abusing us in that relationship, then, so the point is, dharma doesn't just mean what I do for that person. Dharma also is about our own growth. So if that person is abusing me, or if they are abusing me in the sense that they are hurting us, or they are using us to hurt themselves, and we are just becoming instruments for them, then we may have to put some boundaries over there. So in that sense, it has to be carefully contemplated. So the focus should be more on dharma. What is the right thing for me to do? What is the responsible thing for me to do? And how can I do it in this situation? So sometimes somebody may be so sick that it's just not possible for us to care for them. Then we may decide we have to put them in some nursing home or whatever. That will be a hard decision. But if in caring for someone, we are completely crumbling and collapsing, and we can't take care of ourselves, then that could be a problem. But sometimes we go through phases where we need to care for the other person. It may be a little more difficult for us. So again, time, place, circumstance has to be considered. Does that answer your question? Thank you. There's one question here. Should we take it? Okay.
In India,
Okay, short. Okay.
in India, we have a very famous belief that by dipping in the Ganga, all our karmas wash away. So it happens, and what is your opinion on this belief?
See, there is a rational aspect to spirituality and there's a mystical aspect to spirituality. So right now I'm focusing on the rational aspect. Now there is a mystical dimension, and when we talk about bhakti and in the retreat when I'll talk about how the samskaras can be transformed, that time we'll talk about the mystical aspect of changing. But this is certainly, there is definitely, I talked about association, introspection, meditation. One aspect of meditation is that it leads to purification. So purification is definitely one aspect, but the idea that certain rituals can cleanse one so that one can just be irresponsible and do whatever we want. That is a completely unhealthy idea, and it's a wrong idea. The idea is that yes, there are ways in which we can manage our past karma with help from divine sources. So, what is a healthy approach to accessing those divine sources? We'll discuss later. Okay. Yes, thank you. This is a question. Okay, yeah. Two, three questions. Okay. Okay. I'll try to let's take it first.
Okay. So I was thinking when you explained the math part, mitigation, emigration, and
Toleration.
yeah. So I was thinking about this survival mood in the sense of how the nervous system works, and the mitigation would be like the fight response, the emigration, running away will be the flight response, and the other one would be like
The
the
freeze.
stagnation, freeze response.
Yeah.
So I was like making this correlation in my mind. But my question is more like if we want to be in that state of like transformational relationships or being more like the creators of the reality, you would say the tools to attain that would be what you mentioned as aim, the association, introspection, and meditation. So through those tools, we can pass that thing I will call mostly survival, in the way of like we are trying to avoid suffering, or we
Okay.
are responding to a life rather than being in that sense of like creating, or more in the dharma aspect. I don't know how to put it.
Okay, so
Thank you.
it's a good correlation with fight, flight, freeze. And now I also thought about this correlation before. I don't use that because generally the fight flight is considered, all three are considered a bit impulsive, and they are considered, they are not very contemplative responses. So what we are talking here about more of contemplate and make a more informed decision. So fight, flight, freeze. Now freeze generally doesn't lead to survival in the animal kingdom. You freeze, you die. Now fight, flight, one of those could be healthy. So those are, at least the way I look at it, is more like they're biologically driven responses. There's of course the mind involved in it, but they are more impulsive.
More unconscious maybe?
Yeah, more unconscious, automatic. So they are created by us. We are impelled toward them by our samskaras also. So by the aim framework, association, introspection, meditation, we can become more contemplative. And then after that, so fighting is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it can be a good thing also. And while the word flight has a negative connotation, and I won't equate freezing with tolerating, because tolerating and emigration can be good things. But it's just that the process that we are going through, if we are putting due amount of thought in deciding what we are doing, then any of these responses can be a healthy response. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yeah, we'll just take this another question.
Yeah, last. Hare Krishna Guruji. So, quick question: should we base our actions on the end result? Because if we do, then if we don't achieve the end result, there is always hopelessness, and we can say it's based on karma. And if we don't base our actions on the end result, then we might fall into inaction or lethargy. So, what's your take on that?
So, in the Bhagavad Gita, there is a famous verse. It's 247, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachanam. So there it talks about results, and it says be detached from results. That is one thing which often the Gita is quoted for. But just 6 verses before that, there's 241. It says Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurnandana. Have one aim. Don't have too many desires which are driving you. Like some people say, now New Year is coming in a few months. Say, once a friend told me, I have made 108 New Year resolutions. I told him 108 is an auspicious number, but 108 resolutions is not a resolution. It is more like a wish list. We cannot have too many aims. 1, 2, 3. So the Gita is not against. It does say set aims, or you can say set goals. Now the difference is that if we consider goals are set before the action, results come after the action. So before we do an activity, it is important to set goals so that they will motivate us, so that they will inspire us to do our best. At the same time, if we have an understanding of the karma philosophy, we understand that my present actions alone don't determine the results. So, if the results don't come, we can accept it. But if we have not set an aim, then our present action itself may not be wholehearted. And because my present action is not wholehearted, so I don't get the result. I can't blame my past for that. So that's how we set aims, we set goals, but we can stay a little detached from the results. So being detached is not being irresponsible, it is not being apathetic. Like if a parent, his mother is telling a child, yes, the exam is coming tomorrow, why are you not studying? So I'm detached from the results. And you are not detached. You are just being careless, you are just being irresponsible. Isn't it? So set aims. So that's the difference. Okay, thank you. Okay, last question. Yeah.
For me, sometimes it's so hard not to think about the phenomena in social terms, to analyze them in a social term. So I remained thinking about what is probably one of the hardest experiences for the people of this country in its recent history, one of the most painful experiences. From your point of view, how did mostly the people approach the partition of India? During the partition of India and immediately afterwards, by mitigating, or emigrating, or tolerating. And in that sense, how could or what could Western people learn about this experience?
Yeah. When we go into history, it becomes very complicated because, as they say, history is always told by the winners. So sometimes that means what actually happened, who was responsible. It's difficult to say. Say in India, the causes of partition will be told differently from what they're told in Pakistan. So there is some subjective element to the point of history. Now, so in such situations, I have friends in Pakistan, and there's a Hindu friends. What? Yeah, that's clean. So, how do I drink it?
You need to just
Pour it, okay. So some of them chose to stay over there. They are tolerated. Now some of them have sorry, especially those who are living in cities, major cities, they're relatively safer over there. Those who are living in more rural areas, there might be more threat over there. My brother is married a girl whose family emigrated from there. They were prosperous, so they just left everything and came. They have quite terrible memories of what all that happened over there. Now the way it happened, fighting was mitigating was almost impossible. It was just a terrible phase of violence that happened over there. But sometimes we cannot make sense of life. That means one aspect of karma is to recognize that we are agents, but we are finite agents. We have finite capacity to understand things, and we have finite capacity to change things. So we can make sense of life sometimes, but we have better possibility to make sense in life. So what is the difference between make sense of life and in life? I have a friend who is a firefighter in California. So he told me that when there is forest, when there is fire, not a forest fire, there is fire. The first thing they want to know is, if they are rushing there, what caused the fire? Was it arson? Or was it accident? Was it caused by some electrical thing? Was it caused by some fuel? Was it just wood burning? So now that helps them face the fire and strategize how to fight the fire. But sometimes there's just no information available. Then they just have to make the best. Okay, this is the fire here now. Okay, there are civilians living over there. So we have to make sure that the fire doesn't go in that direction. So we attack the fire from that side. Sometimes they can find out the cause of the fire after the fire has been extinguished, and then they investigate. Sometimes even after investigating, can't find the cause of the fire sometimes. So in life, we can't always make sense of life. That's just, even in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna has to fight a terrible war. And Krishna, when he is preparing him to fight that war, Krishna doesn't go into an esoteric past life revelations. Oh, you were so XYZ in this life, and that person was ABC in that life, and they did that, and you did that, and that's why now you are fighting against each other. Okay, this is what life is now. Let's make sense of life. If we can't make sense of life, let's make sense in life. Make sense of life means, like, I try to understand what is happening and why it is happening. But make sense in life means, I can't understand why this is happening, but what is the best thing I can do? Right? Or what is the constructive thing I can do in this situation? And just try to do that. So yeah, sometimes in history, terrible things happen. Now we could go into historical reasons, and there are religious tensions between Hindus and Muslims were there. The British also had a divide and rule policy. And they could go into many factors that specifically caused the partition. And the divide and rule policy that the British had when they were leaving, that has led to a lot of problems. North Korea, South Korea are still fighting. There is Vietnam, there was a terrible war. In some ways, the Arab-Palestine issue, that is not only because of divide and rule. You can't, it's very oversimplistic. So in history, you cannot just reduce problems to one particular cause. It's complex. But to whatever extent we try to make sense of things. But if we can't make sense of things, we just focus on make sense in life. What can I do in this particular situation? Now that the situation has come upon me, what can I do about it? So in India, there was caste discrimination in the past. Now it's substantially gone down. In the West, there was racial discrimination. So sometimes when maybe 100, 200 years ago, people who faced this kind of discrimination had to live with it. No, they couldn't do much about it. But now, they have much more resources available to do it, something about it. So the point is, sometimes we just have to tolerate, or we just have to deal with it. Whether by tolerating or emigrating. Sometimes the social forces that are acting may be just too big for us to do anything about it. So at that time, we can't do much about it. So if we can't make sense of life, we can make sense in life. Okay. Thank you. So thank you so much for your thoughtful participation. Hare Krishna.